Open Line Friday, Open Borders Friday. Rush Limbaugh here at 800-282-2882 as the president has just announced his new planned catch-release vote. Young illegals will not be deported any longer. However, I want to move on beyond that. I've said pretty much everything there is to be said about that. That speech yesterday, 57 minutes, whatever it was an utter disaster. And all afternoon yesterday and all last night, state-controlled media was in sheer panic over it. And somebody finally figured out that Obama was suckered into this by no less than Mitt Romney. Apparently, folks, remember when Axelrod was in Boston last week and a bunch of Romney people showed up and heckled and asked questions and basically embarrassed Axelrod? Apparently, the regime said, you don't do that. That's what we do to you, but you don't do that to us. It was Romney's speech yesterday that was scheduled first. It was Obama who then scheduled his speech after, and actually, Solindra's part of this too, because apparently the regime and Obama personally was livid that Romney went out to Solyndra and stood in front of the boarded-up headquarters and all the dilapidated signage and did an appearance to illustrate the bankrupt nature of Obama's Green Policies Initiative. That bugged him. So this yesterday in Ohio, this was Obama getting even. And the press, they knew this, didn't report it that way, but they knew that, and they were all excited about it, and so they built this thing up. They built this Obama speech up. It was going to be a major reset. You heard it. You know all about it. They really lifted those expectations. And they thought it was a slam dunk because Obama gives a speech that's better than anybody. Nobody's even close. Nobody can hold a candle to Barack Obama. This guy, he's the best speech maker. He's the best president. He's the smartest guy we ever had. They had every hope and dream they've ever had channeled into this speech. And it was a bomb. It was a dud. Do you know what the Romney team did? After Romney's speech, the Romney bus went to the site, the Cuyahoga Community College, where Obama was, and the bus drove around the place honking and basically, practical joke, honking and interrupting. Not the speech going on inside. But as people were lined up to get into Obama's speech, Romney's bus drove around the place a couple of times and was taunting everybody. And this ticked him off. Mitt Romney, Mitt Romney, I don't know if Romney was in the bus, but the Romney campaign bus, there's probably a bunch of Romney buses. But a Romney bus went to where Obama was speaking while people were lined up, circled the place twice, I'm told, and honked horns and basically taunted the people lined up to get into Obama's speech. Then the speech comes, and McCain has not demanded an apology. Jeb Bush has not decried partisanship. I'm telling you, Obama, they were discombobulated. And so this speech yesterday was basically to pay Romney back for what he did to Axelrod in Boston and going out to Solyndra. So they said they built this thing up, and it was just a disaster. And these press people, they couldn't hide it. They couldn't lie about it. It was that bad. Jonathan Alt, worst speech I've ever heard him give. They started coming up with theories that they thought maybe could explain it, and they gave them all up, and they had to conclude that it was an utter, absolute disaster. Now, the RNC has put together an internet ad, 3 minutes long. I have a 1-minute limit here on sound bites. I told Cookie, give me the whole thing. I'll start it and stop it. What they did, the RNC took elements of Obama's speech yesterday and went back to previous Obama speeches and took identical phrases and sentences and sandwiched them back together, back to back, to illustrate it's tired, it's old, it's worn out, it's the same old teleprompter, it's nothing new. Stale, old, rotten, just typically antiquated. So I have the audio of this. And when you hear the same things, when you hear Obama say the same thing twice, understand that one was in Cleveland yesterday, the other one was in previous speeches this year, the year before, and the year before that. And the video version, I think that they have graphics that indicate the date where Obama first said it. I haven't heard it yet. I've just read about it. I haven't seen it yet because I don't watch a whole lot of videos on the computer. So I'm going to be listening to this for the first time. You may have seen it. It's 3 minutes. I'll stop it as we go. I hope it translates to radio. You realize most hosts would not take this risk. Most hosts would preview it first. Make sure it works for radio. And if it doesn't, they wouldn't use it. I, El Rushbo, am not bound by such conventions because I can make it work even if it doesn't. So let's listen to it. Let's see what it sounds like.
I believe this is a make-or-break moment for the middle class.
This is a make-or-break moment for America's middle class.
Over the last few decades,
the
income of the top 1% has grown by more than 275%.
Grew by more than 275%.
To an average of $1.3 million a year.
To an average of $1.3 million a year.
But I also share the belief.
But I do share the belief
of our first Republican president. Abraham Lincoln.
A
belief that through government, we should do together what we cannot do as well for ourselves. As much as we might associate the GI Bill with Franklin Roosevelt.
Or
Medicare with Lyndon Johnson. It was a Republican, Lincoln. Who launched the Transcontinental Railroad. National Academy of Sciences. Land grant colleges. It was Eisenhower who launched the interstate highway system.
It was a Republican, Eisenhower, who launched the interstate highway system.
Investment in scientific research.
And a new era of scientific research.
It was Richard Nixon who created the Environmental Protection Agency. Ronald Reagan who worked with Democrats to save Social Security. Nearly 10 million college students would see their financial aid cut by an average of more than $1,000 each.
10 million college students would lose an average of $1,000 each on financial aid.
Over 200,000 children would lose their chance to get an early education in the Head Start program.
200,000 children would lose the chance to get an early education in the Head Start program.
There would be 1,600 fewer medical grants.
There would be
Stop the tape.
1,600.
We're not through. We probably have another minute of this. It's the RNC doing this. And McCain hadn't apologized for this ad either. But these are, you can hear, identical phrases from previous speeches repeated yesterday. And that's one of the reasons why the drive-bys were so disappointed. They've heard it all before. It's all it's a crock. All these stats, all these assertions are BS. They know it. They've been covering for it. But it was an utter disaster. And I'll tell you something. Well, this doesn't include the stuff we blame Bush, but here's the thing. What this highlights is the incompetence of the campaign. You go back to 2008, they basically had one speech, and it was a lower the sea level speech. It was this hope and change, and that's what they've got now. They've got one speech that they recycle and have a few little differences from place to place. Here, let's listen to the rest of this.
Fewer medical research grants
for things like Alzheimer's, cancer, and AIDS. 4,000 fewer scientific research grants. Eliminating support for 48,000 researchers, students, and teachers. But prosperity sure didn't trickle down. We had the slowest job growth in half a century. And the typical American family actually saw their incomes fall.
The Republican National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
And at the end of it, there's a little graphic that says, good grief. Good grief. And this ad is just the latest proof that Obama's a one-trick teleprompter. Let's take a brief timeout. We'll come back, listen to some of the media. Sad, disappointed, worried when we come back. Don't go away.
In time.